There comes a moment when you finally realize no one is coming to rescue you. The world listens out of politeness, not concern. They nod, they sympathize, but when you turn your back, life resumes as if your battles never existed. Harsh? Perhaps. But freeing? Absolutely. Because buried beneath this painful truth is a gift. The realization that your healing, your rise, your power has never been anyone else's responsibility but yours. Complaining may bring you fleeting attention, but it will never bring you peace. Only action will. Only self-reliance will. Today, we shed the illusion that others owe us their empathy. Today, we reclaim our power. The sudden silence before a thunderstorm. You've felt it, haven't you? That moment when you spill your heart out to someone, the fears, the pain, the weight you've been carrying, and they look at you with soft eyes, maybe even a nod. But behind that gaze, you sense it. A kind of distance, a polite emptiness. They're there, but they're not with you. It stings. It confuses. Because you thought opening up would bring closeness. But instead, you're left holding your pain still heavy, still yours, while they move on as if you never said a word. That's when it hits you. Most people listen because it's the polite thing to do, not because they truly care. The reflex of politeness, it's not because they're bad people, it's because they're drowning too. Everyone you meet is fighting a silent battle you'll never fully see. And when you pour your wounds into their hands, sometimes they don't have the strength to hold them. So they give you what they can. A nod, a soft, I understand. A few words of comfort that feel thinner than air. It's a reflex, not a rescue. And the sooner you see this, the sooner you stop confusing sympathy with salvation. When the silence hurts, but I know that realization hurts, because for a long time, you believed that being heard would heal you. You believed that if you could just explain your pain well enough, someone would come along and fix it. Someone would take the weight off your shoulders. But they can't, because it's not their weight to carry, and it never was. That truth is sharp, but it's also clean. It cuts away the illusions that keep you trapped in cycles of disappointment. The gift of emotional independence, there's a strange freedom in understanding that, a quiet liberation. Because once you stop expecting others to fix your inner world, you start building it yourself. You stop chasing nods of approval. You stop bleeding in front of people who can't and shouldn't stop your wound. You learn to sit with your own pain, to understand it, to heal it, not by broadcasting it, but by transforming it. That's emotional independence. It's not isolation. It's not bitterness. It's self-respect in its purest form. The mirror moment. Ask yourself this. How many times have you listened to someone's problems while secretly thinking about your own? It's not selfishness. It's human nature. We are wired to survive first, empathize second. When you see this mirror clearly, without judgment, you stop taking people's indifference personally. You stop seeing it as rejection. It simply is. And from that clarity, you reclaim your power. The quiet challenge. So the next time you feel the urge to unload your pain onto someone, pause. Not because you shouldn't express yourself, but because you deserve better than surface-level sympathy. Give yourself what others can't. Deep, undistracted attention. Sit with your story. Understand it. Transform it. Because the most profound validation doesn't come from being heard by others. It comes from being heard by yourself. There's a subtle pleasure in being the one who was wronged. People tread lightly around your wound. They offer you softness, lowered expectations, and a certain unspoken permission to stay exactly where you are. For a moment, it feels like safety. You don't have to explain your failures. You don't have to strive so hard. The world expects less from you and calls it kindness. But what feels like kindness is often the beginning of a slow death, because victimhood, in its most seductive form, is not loud. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It offers you excuses wrapped in sympathy. It tells you, rest here, you've been through enough. And without realizing it, you begin to build a home inside that narrative. A home where nothing grows, but everything feels justified. This is the dangerous comfort of being a victim. The more you repeat your story of pain, the more you start believing it is the foundation of your identity. The more you wear your wounds as a shield, the more they begin to define you. And what started as a genuine hurt becomes a chosen limitation. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're only protecting your limitations. Here's the truth no one likes to hear. Life is brutally indifferent to your excuses. Opportunities don't pause for your pain. Growth doesn't negotiate with your wounds. The world keeps moving, and the longer you stay wrapped in the comfort of being a victim, the further you drift from your own potential. Pain is inevitable, but what you do with it is a choice. You can keep reopening the wound, pointing at it, waiting for the world to validate it. Or you can decide quietly, without announcement, to heal, to stop narrating the injustice, to stop using it as a reason for staying small. There's a silent power in choosing dignity over pity. Not the loud, defiant kind of power. Not the kind that demands applause, but the quiet, inner resolve of someone who knows they owe themselves more than their excuses. The moment you stop expecting the world to lower its standards for your pain is the moment you start rising on your own terms. It happens in a single breath. A shift so subtle, yet so profound. When you finally get tired, not of the struggle, but of your own story. When you see yourself clearly and say, I am more than what happened to me. That is the moment you reclaim your power. Not by erasing your pain, but by refusing to let it become your permanent address. No one can do this for you. No amount of sympathy will carry you across the finish line of your own life. At some point, you have to choose. Stay in the warmth of victimhood, or walk through the fire and forge something stronger. So ask yourself with brutal honesty, are you healing, or are you hiding? Are you growing, or are you narrating? Because the comfort of being a victim is sweet at first, but it will suffocate you if you let it. And the only way out is through yourself, in silence, with dignity, because no one else will do it for you. There comes a time when you realize painfully, quietly, that no one is coming to save you. People may care, they may listen, they may offer words of comfort, but none of them can truly step into your pain, carry your burdens, or fix what's broken inside you. That's not cruelty, that's reality. And in that reality hides a gift most people never unwrap. The gift of emotional self-reliance. At first it feels like abandonment, like standing alone in a storm with no shelter in sight. You want someone to understand fully, deeply, without you having to explain. But they can't. They're too busy surviving their own storms. And the more you expect from them, the more disappointed you become. Until one day, you get tired of the disappointment. You stop waiting. You stop reaching out, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. That's when you begin to understand. Self-reliance is not isolation, it is liberation. Because when you no longer depend on others to validate your feelings, to process your pain, or to hold you together, you discover a different kind of strength, a quiet, sovereign strength. The kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that doesn't fall apart when no one is watching. Most people think self-reliance means shutting people out. It doesn't. It means becoming the kind of person who can hold space for their own emotions, who can sit with discomfort without reaching for someone else's approval, who can navigate the darkness without demanding a spotlight on their suffering. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it's the foundation of true emotional freedom. Every time you survive a hard night without needing to broadcast your pain, you're building self-reliance. Every time you process your struggles in silence, not for secrecy, but for sovereignty, you're reclaiming a part of yourself that was never meant to be outsourced. Because here's the truth. Your healing is your responsibility. Your peace is your responsibility. Your rise is your responsibility. No one else owes you that. And once you stop expecting the world to carry what was always meant to be yours, you stop feeling so weighed down. You stop resenting others for not showing up the way you hoped. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. Instead, you start seeing yourself as capable, reliable, whole. There's a profound dignity in becoming your own emotional anchor, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing no matter what life throws at you, you can stand. Maybe not without pain, maybe not without struggle, but you can stand. And in that stance, in that quiet refusal to collapse, you become untouchable. This is the heart of emotional self-reliance. Not coldness, not arrogance, but an earned, lived-in strength. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. So ask yourself, are you still waiting for someone to rescue you from your own emotions? Or are you ready to become your own sanctuary? Because no one else can do this work for you. And when you finally accept that, you realize it was never abandonment. It was life giving you back to yourself, in silence, with dignity, and with a power no one else can give or take away. There's a moment when you realize how much of your life has been lived for someone else's approval. The way you speak, the way you move. The choices you make all subconsciously weighed against invisible judges who don't even care as much as you think. You dress your wounds in perfection. You hide your doubts behind smiles. All for what? A nod? A like? A fleeting moment of being seen? But here's the cruel joke. No matter how much you twist yourself for their approval, it will never be enough. Because people's attention is fickle. Their opinions change with the wind. One day you're praised, the next you're forgotten. If your sense of worth is chained to that, you will be a prisoner forever dancing for an audience that isn't even watching. And yet, indifference scares you. It feels like giving up, like not caring anymore, but that's because you've misunderstood it. Indifference is not coldness, it's clarity. It's the calm refusal to let every passing opinion dictate your peace. When you become indifferent to approval, you don't become less human, you become more whole. You start doing things because they are right for you, not because they will be applauded. You speak your truth, not because it will be popular, but because it's yours. And in that space, something shifts. You begin to reclaim energy. You didn't even know you were leaking energy spent on managing perceptions, chasing validation, and fearing disapproval. True indifference is quiet power. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is. You watch as people come and go, as opinions rise and fall, but your center remains untouched. Their approval becomes a passing cloud, noticed, but not needed. And in that detachment, you become dangerous, not in a reckless way, but in a free way, because a person who no longer fears disapproval is a person who cannot be controlled. They create, they speak, they live for the sake of alignment, not applause. But reaching this space requires a hard question. Whose approval are you really seeking? And at what cost? Is it the parent whose standards you could never meet? The peers whose praise feels like a drug? The faceless crowd on a screen that forgets you by tomorrow? Every time you seek their approval, you trade a piece of your peace. And for what? A temporary high? A fragile sense of belonging? You don't need to rebel loudly. You don't need to announce your detachment. You simply need to stop playing the game. Quietly, consistently. You start by approving of yourself, by standing in front of the mirror and knowing you are enough without their applause, without their permission. And when you stop performing for approval, you start living for truth. Your truth. That is the subtle power of indifference. Not arrogance, not apathy, but a deep, earned peace that says, I know who I am, and that is enough. So ask yourself, are you ready to stop living for borrowed validation? Are you ready to own your peace without needing their nod? Because the moment you let go of needing them to approve is the moment you set yourself free, in silence, with dignity, for yourself and no one else. There's a harsh truth most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Your pain is not anyone else's responsibility, not your parents, not your partners, not the world's. It's yours, entirely. And that truth, though sharp, though uncomfortable, is the key to your freedom. But at first, it feels cruel, because you want someone to answer for your suffering. You want the people who hurt you to fix it. You want life itself to owe you a refund for everything it took. And so you wait for apologies, for justice, for someone to carry the weight that's been crushing you, but no one comes. Because they can't, not because they don't care, but because your pain is an inside job. Only you can do that work. And until you accept that, you stay stuck, reliving old wounds, rehearsing old stories, hoping for a rescue that will never arrive. But here's what no one tells you. Taking ownership of your pain isn't unfair. It's empowering. Because as long as your healing depends on someone else, you are powerless. You've outsourced your peace to people who are often too broken to hold it. You've made your freedom conditional on things you cannot control. And that is a recipe for endless suffering. Radical ownership is different. It's not about excusing what was done to you. It's about reclaiming what you've allowed to stay broken. It's standing in front of the mirror and saying, "This happened. It hurt. But what I do with this pain now that's on me, that is not weakness. That is not self-blame. That is power." Because once you take ownership, you stop waiting, you stop pleading, you stop rehearsing the same stories that keep you trapped. You begin to act, to heal, to grow, not because someone fixed it for you, but because you decided to rise anyway. It's not glamorous. Radical ownership is quiet, lonely work. It's the choice to pick up your own broken pieces without making a scene. It's realizing that life isn't fair and moving forward anyway, with grace, with grit. And here's the quiet miracle. The moment you own your pain, it loses its power to control you. You stop being a victim of circumstance. You become the architect of your life. Most people never get there. They spend their years pointing fingers, building shrines to their suffering, waiting for closure that never comes. But you have a choice. You can keep telling the story of what broke you, or you can start writing the story of how you built yourself back. So ask yourself, are you still waiting for someone else to fix the mess inside you? Or are you ready to own it, clean it up, and move forward? Because no one else is coming. But that's not the tragedy. That's the opportunity. The day you take radical ownership of your life is the day you stop being a prisoner of your past. In silence, with dignity, for yourself, by yourself. There is a sacred strength in building quietly. But most people will never taste it, because they've been taught to measure their progress by the noise it makes, the applause, the recognition, the constant need to be seen. And so, when no one is watching, they stop. When no one claps, they doubt themselves, as if growth only matters validated by others. But real transformation, it happens in the shadows, away from the noise, away from the eyes that only understand finished products, not the bloody process behind them. The problem is, you've confused visibility with value. You think if it isn't posted, it didn't happen. If no one praises you, it wasn't worth it. But that mindset is a trap, a dangerous addiction to external confirmation. The truth is simple. The most important chapters of your growth will be written in complete silence. No likes, no comments, no audience, just you. And the work and the uncomfortable, relentless process of becoming. This is where most people quit, because it feels like nothing is happening, like you're running uphill while the world passes you by. But what you don't see, what you must believe, is that roots grow underground long before anything breaks the surface. And if you're not patient enough to build in the dark, you'll never stand tall in the light. The dark is where discipline is born, where character is forged, where you learn to be driven by purpose, not praise. Because when you build for applause, you'll crumble in silence. But when you build in silence, applause becomes irrelevant. Think of every master, every craftsman, every creator who ever mattered. Their greatness was not built on stage. It was built in lonely rooms, in forgotten hours, in moments when no one cared except them. That's where you separate yourself. You don't need to announce your hustle. You don't need to prove your progress. You need to commit, quietly, every single day, especially when no one is watching. Because here's the truth, no one wants to hear. The people you admire the most weren't watching their audience. They were watching their craft. And one day, when the results finally spoke, the world called them overnight successes. But they knew better. They had been building in the dark for years. So ask yourself, are you willing to grow without being seen? Are you willing to water seeds no one believes in yet? Because that is where your real power lies. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows where only you know the battles you're winning. You don't need an audience to grow. You need patience. You need grit. And you need the humility to keep showing up, long before the world notices. That's the quiet power of building in the dark, in silence, with dignity. For yourself, not for their applause. There's a lie you've been told, a comforting, poisonous lie. That healing means closure. That every wound must be explained, justified, wrapped up in a neat little story before you can move forward. But life isn't a movie. Most of the time, you won't get an apology. You won't get the answers you crave. And sometimes, the people who broke you will never understand what they've done. That's not fair. But it's real. The search for closure is where so many lose themselves, stuck in the loop of, why did this happen? Trapped in fantasies of final conversations that never come. You think if you can just get that one explanation, that perfect moment of understanding, the pain will dissolve. But it won't, because closure was never their job to give you. It was always yours to create. You don't heal by reopening wounds, trying to make sense of senseless things. You heal by deciding that even without answers, you are still allowed to live fully. Closure is a myth. It suggests there's an endpoint to grief, to disappointment, to betrayal. But some scars are meant to stay, not as open wounds, but as quiet reminders of what you survived. The goal is not to erase them. The goal is to live well, even with them. Moving on is not disrespecting your pain. It's refusing to let it own you. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. To accept the chapter without needing the perfect ending. To let people go without hearing the words you wish they'd say. To choose peace, not because everything makes sense now, but because you're tired of giving chaos free rent in your mind. True healing is not loud. It's not dramatic. It's a quiet decision you make sometimes every day to keep walking forward, even with unanswered questions in your heart. You'll never get closure from people who couldn't give you clarity in the first place. But you can give yourself something better. The permission to move on, unfinished but free. Because life doesn't wait for neat resolution. It rewards those who keep living without them. And that is enough. Pain can do two things to you. It can bury you, or it can build you. But here's the part most people miss. Pain doesn't choose. You do. Every person you admire, every relentless, unstoppable human didn't escape pain. They met it. They bled through it. And somewhere along the way, they made a decision. This will not be wasted. You see, suffering is inevitable. But staying small because of it? That's optional. Most people don't realize how much energy they waste resisting their pain, complaining about it, running from it, telling the same story of how unfair life has been as if that will somehow make it hurt less. But pain ignored doesn't disappear. It festers. It corrodes from within. The ones who rise are not the ones who escape suffering. They're the ones who alchemize it, who take the sharpness of betrayal, failure, heartbreak, and sharpen themselves with it. It's not a miracle. It's a method. Step 1. Stop asking, why me? Start asking, now what? Pain gives you raw, unfiltered energy. Most waste it in bitterness. But you have the chance to redirect it. Anger becomes focus. Heartbreak becomes hunger. Loss becomes clarity. But only if you're willing to face it head on. Think of it like this. Every moment you spend resenting your pain is a moment it controls you. But every time you say, I will build with this, you take back the wheel. You don't have to be grateful for the hurt, but you do have to decide if it will harden you in weakness or forge you into something unstoppable. Pain is pure fuel, but only if you're ruthless enough to refine it. There is no ceremony for this, no applause. It's a private contract between you and your suffering. I will outgrow you. I will outwork you. I will turn you into my reason. And when you do, the world will notice, not because you asked for sympathy, but because you turned your scars into sharp edges that cut through every obstacle in your path. This isn't inspiration. It's engineering. Take the weight they put on your shoulders and build muscle. Take the fire they lit under you and forge your own furnace. Because once you learn how to turn pain into power, you become untouchable. Not because life stops hurting, but because you stop wasting that hurt. And that's when you become dangerous to your doubts, to your fears, to the smallness that once owned you. Not by chance, not by miracle, but by choice. Let me ask you something. How long have you been holding your breath, waiting for someone to tell you you're enough? How much of your life has been spent chasing gold, stars, applause, approval, as if your worth depended on someone else noticing it first? It's exhausting, isn't it? This silent addiction to external validation, this constant scanning of faces, of metrics, of reaction, looking for proof that you matter. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Most people are too busy fighting their own battles to pause and crown you. It's not cruelty. It's just life. And the longer you wait for permission to feel proud of yourself, the more you hand over your power to people who were never qualified to give it. Self-validation isn't arrogance. It's emotional survival. It's standing in front of your own reflection and saying, I see the effort you're making. I see the battles no one else does. And I'm proud of you. Even when no one claps. Even when no one notices. Because pride in yourself should never be a reward you beg for. It should be a habit you build. Think of it this way. If your confidence needs constant feeding from outside, you'll always be starving. But when you learn to source that pride from within, from your own integrity, your own quiet victories, you become self-sustaining. It's a shift from performing for validation to living in alignment with your own values. You stop asking, do they see me? And start focusing on, am I living in a way that I respect? That's when pride becomes something sacred. Not loud, not boastful, but solid, untouchable. It's in the small, unglamorous choices. Choosing discipline when no one is watching. Choosing honesty when lying would be easier. Choosing growth when staying small feels safer. You validate yourself through action. Through showing up, not to impress, but to express who you are becoming. And that quiet pride, it builds something louder than applause. Self-respect. No algorithm can measure it. No audience can give it. But once you have it, no one can take it away. Here's the hard truth. The world owes you no recognition, but you owe yourself acknowledgement. So today, right now, stop waiting for someone else to see you. See yourself, not with the eyes of judgment, but with the eyes of someone who knows how far you've come. That is how you become free. Not when they clap for you, but when you no longer need them to,